They called me the family failure and cut me from the university trust. My father, the dean, disowned me after graduation. 10 years later, I walked into my brother's award gala as the CEO advising his fiancée's family foundation. When they asked, "Do you know her?" I said, "More than you think." I wasn't expecting a letter. Not in this age of digital calendars and Slack pings. But there it was, an envelope with gold trim and my family's university crest embossed on the front. Someone had sent it to the front desk of my office tower in downtown Austin. Reception forwarded it to my floor with a polite sticky note attached. "Looks fancy." When I opened it, I stopped breathing for a second. It was an invitation. Jonah Mallory, my younger brother, was being honored as a rising star in biomedical research at the university gala. The kind of black tie, glass of Pinot in every hand affair where they use words like innovation and legacy. And I wasn't just invited. The envelope said Mrs. Eliza Mallory, founder and CEO, SolVault Analytics. They'd used my business title. They had no idea who I was. My name is Eliza. I'm 34. I live in Texas now, far enough from Boston, from the Mallory name and the ivory tower it sits in. Far enough that for 10 years I didn't have to think about them. And now with one envelope it all came back. It started a decade ago. I was 19 and failing college, their college. Mallory University. A place where you didn't just get an education, you inherited a pedigree. And I was the defective gene. Back then, I stayed late one night in the West Hall Library, the one with creaky floors and too many oil portraits. I was walking past the dean's office, my father's office, when I heard his voice through the cracked door. "She's a blot on the family record," he said. "No intellectual promise. No work ethic. I told you, Barbara," admitting her was a mistake. He didn't know I was there. My mother did. She said nothing. I left without confronting them. For the first time, I saw it for what it was. My whole life I'd been tolerated, not loved. A daughter who couldn't fit the mold they'd sculpted for Jonah, for themselves. I went back to my dorm and packed everything I owned into 2 duffel bags. My roommate watched but didn't say a word. I think she knew. I didn't cry until I was halfway across state lines on a Greyhound, clutching a printed balance statement that confirmed what I suspected. I'd been cut from the university trust. Just like that. Disowned. That was 10 years ago. Since then, I rebuilt my life piece by piece, deliberately keeping my name and my past buried. Until today. Until this envelope. I stared at the invitation for a long time that night. I ran my fingers over the raised lettering, the Mallory crest. And I couldn't help but laugh. They had no idea who I'd become. Of course they didn't. To them, I'd vanished. An embarrassment swept under the rug. But someone at the alumni office must have done a search and matched the name on the company registration to the event's guest list. They didn't know I was that Eliza Mallory. I poured myself a drink and thought about my brother. Jonah. Sweet, loyal, brilliant Jonah. He was a kid when I left. We didn't talk much after. I doubted he even knew why I disappeared. And now he was being honored, rewarded for staying in the system I broke. I should have felt proud. I didn't. I felt the burn in my chest again. The same one I'd carried since that night outside my father's office. So I made a decision. I would go. Not for them. For me. Let them see the blot on the family record walk through their gala doors in heels and cashmere, with a company worth 7 figures and a spine of steel. Let them finally meet the woman they tried to erase. I got off the bus in Wilmington with $68 to my name and no plan beyond not going back. The town was small and smelled like saltwater and frying oil. The kind of place where nobody asked questions if you didn't offer answers. I rented a weekly room above a diner, did breakfast shifts from 6 to noon, and cleaned the bar across the street at night. I worked in silence, kept my head down, and let the routine stitch my mind back together. Some nights I'd sit on the back steps behind the diner and read borrowed finance books under the glow of a flickering bulb. Things like The Intelligent Investor and Principles of Corporate Finance. I didn't even fully understand the formulas at first, but the logic in them calmed me. Numbers never judged you. When I wasn't working, I was teaching myself everything the university had refused to. I scoured open courseware, watched lectures on a second-hand laptop, and downloaded every spreadsheet template I could find. I told myself I didn't need a degree, just knowledge and time. And rage, I guess. Rage was a hell of a motivator. By 22, I passed my first financial analyst exam, took it under a fake last name, my mother's maiden name. No Mallory. I wasn't giving them the satisfaction. I got my first real job managing data for a boutique real estate group. I was underpaid and invisible, but I watched everything. Learned how to build reports that made grown men nod slowly and say, huh. Eventually, I caught the eye of a private equity associate who asked if I'd ever considered launching an analytics firm. I told him I had, even though I hadn't, not seriously. That night, I bought a domain, solvaultanalytics.com. 6 months later, SolVault was born out of a sublet office and a borrowed desk. We started by selling quarterly risk models to investment groups. Eventually, our tech got smart, predictive, streamlined, bulletproof. We weren't flashy, but we were lethal in meetings. Precise. Confident. Clients loved us. University boards? Not so much. I didn't plan to target Mallory University directly. It just happened. A funding decision here. A land grant delay there. One of our clients wanted leverage over their board on a building contract. My team ran a deep dive into the project's financials. We found discrepancies, quietly flagged them. The vote didn't go in the university's favor. They didn't know I had anything to do with it. That was the beautiful part. I operated behind a brand, not a person, not a name. The more successful Solvault got, the more I built walls around who I had once been. Mallory was dead. Eliza Jordan, CEO, was sharper, faster, and allergic to nostalgia. People knew not to ask about my past. I let my suits and my results speak for me. I made a fortune off secrets and silence. But even with all of it, accolades, clients, leverage, I never let myself forget. 10 years ago, they threw me out because I wasn't their idea of excellence. Now I outranked them in every room I entered. They just didn't know it yet. I walked into the gala alone. Tailored black suit, silk blouse, clean lines, no frills, just structure and intent. My heels tapped against the marble floors like punctuation. I carried a small clutch, no coat, and no trace of the girl I used to be. The Mallory University atrium looked exactly the same. All glass and ego. Banners hanging from the ceiling with Latin slogans and donor names. I paused under one that read, Traditio et Innovatio. I almost laughed. I stepped up to the check-in table. Name? The intern asked, scanning the RSVP list. Eliza Jordan. She found the name and brightened. Oh yes, here you are. Table 17. You're with the industry partners. Of course I was. Not alumni. Not family. Just another corporate donor. I moved through the crowd like I belonged because I did. Nobody recognized me. Or if they did, they didn't know how. People smiled politely as I passed. A few glanced twice trying to place me. I didn't give them time. My brother was at the front of the hall near the stage, surrounded by cameras and well-wishers. Jonah still had the same boyish hair, the same nervous energy in his shoulders, but he looked grown. Crisp tux, name tag that read, Honoree Jonah Mallory. I felt something twist in my chest. Beside him was his fiancée, tall, poised, and unmistakably connected. I recognized her from a tech profile a few months back. Emerson Cavill Tech heiress. It figured. I stood at the edge of the group, waiting until the moment stretched long enough to be noticed. Then I stepped forward. Congratulations, I said, voice even. Jonah turned. His smile froze mid-expression. Eliza, he said, almost in a whisper. The fiancé blinked, looking between us. Do you know her? I smiled. More than you think. Jonah's jaw worked like he was trying to force words past the shock. What are you doing here? Got an invitation. Figured it was time to catch up. He stared at me. I didn't know. I know, I said gently. That's why I came. Behind him, my mother turned from the drink table, wine glass half raised. Her face went slack. My father, Dean Mallory, appeared a second later. His eyes locked onto mine like I was a ghost. He recovered quickly, of course. He always did. Straightened his shoulders. Gave a tight professional nod. Eliza. Dean Mallory, I said. Not dad. Not father. He flinched just slightly. We weren't expecting you. Clearly, I said, glancing at my name tag, generic, printed in Helvetica. But I'm glad I made it. My mother stepped forward, lips trembling into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You look different. I am. The silence tightened like a drawstring around the group. People began drifting away, sensing something brittle in the air. Jonah still hadn't said anything. His fiancée reached for his arm. Do you want to? He shook his head. No, I want to talk to her. I leaned in slightly, lowered my voice. Let's save it for later. Big night, Jonah. Wouldn't want to overshadow your moment. Then I stepped back, offered him a measured nod, and disappeared into the crowd, just long enough to let the echo of my return settle into their carefully curated world. They put me at a table near the back, number 17, tucked between a visiting tech consultant and a junior faculty member from biology, who kept nervously adjusting his bow tie. It wasn't an accident. My father had influence over seating arrangements. He wanted me visible but distant, present but insignificant. That was fine. I wasn't here to be celebrated. I was here to be noticed. And no one notices the woman in the middle of the spotlight. They watch the one standing just outside of it, calm and smiling like she knows how the show ends. During cocktail hour, I drifted through the crowd, glass of champagne in hand. I didn't drink it. I needed to stay sharp. That's when I saw him. Theo Rain. It took me a second to place him. A few years older than Jonah, tall, with a crooked nose and the kind of jawline that made professors forgive missed deadlines. He'd been one of my father's favorite students back in the day. Interned under him, co-authored something in a medical ethics journal. Theo was standing alone near the bar, staring at a painting on the wall with the kind of bored irritation only former insiders feel. I walked up beside him, still pretending that thing isn't hung crooked. I said quietly. He turned, eyebrows lifting. That depends. Are you going to report me for disrespecting institutional art? Eliza Jordan, I said, offering my hand. He shook it. Theo Rain. though I have a feeling you already knew that. I remember a few things, I said with a shrug. You were in the news for a minute a while back. Legal reform on ethics disclosures, right? His mouth quirked. Nice of you to notice. I notice patterns, I said. And ghosts. He gave a dry laugh. Then you probably also noticed I wasn't invited to sit with the trustees tonight. I noticed a few snubs, I said, sipping my champagne without tasting it. Didn't think you were still affiliated. Technically, I consult. Occasionally. Not enough to make the dean proud. I raised my eyebrows. Let me guess, credit theft? Theo smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You know your father well. I tilted my head. I used to. He studied me for a beat. You're not here just to smile and nod, are you? No, I said, voice low. I'm here because I want him to remember who I am. Not just the girl he erased. The woman who came back with leverage. Theo leaned in slightly. You looking for someone with a good memory and a long list of institutional secrets? Depends, I said. You still keep copies of your correspondence? His smile finally turned sharp. Every word. I reached into my clutch, pulled out a card, and handed it to him. Let's talk. As he slipped the card into his pocket, I turned to glance across the room. My father was watching. So was my mother. Their expressions were unreadable, but their eyes gave them away, calculating, uneasy. They weren't sure what I was doing, but they knew I was doing something good. That was the point. Let them wonder. Let them feel the first crack run through the marble floor they built their world on. Dinner began like every other gala dinner I remembered from my childhood. Too many forks, too much applause, and not enough truth. The ballroom lights dimmed slightly, casting a golden hue over crystal glasses and white linen. Waiters moved like ghosts between the tables, placing plates that looked like museum exhibits more than meals. I didn't touch mine. I was focused on the stage. Dean Mallory stood tall at the podium, a vision of academic pride in a custom tuxedo and that same smug calm he wore the night he disowned me. He didn't glance my way, not even once. Not yet. Tonight, he began, voice rich and practiced, we celebrate not only scientific achievement, but legacy. One forged through generations of commitment to intellectual rigor and academic excellence. He paused, letting the words hang like incense. Our son, Jonah Mallory, exemplifies that legacy. His work reflects not just brilliance but discipline, focus, a commitment to truth and innovation that honors his roots. Polite applause rippled through the room. My mother dabbed at the corner of her eye with a napkin. Jonah shifted uncomfortably next to his fiancée. I didn't blame him. That wasn't a speech about a son. It was a coronation. Dean Mallory smiled. In our family, we believe in lifting up those who show promise and character, in shaping the future through careful guidance. That is our legacy. I stood. The room quieted a little too quickly. He wasn't finished speaking. I didn't care. I raised my glass, if I may. My voice carried with ease, crisp, unshaken. Congratulations, Jonah. Truly, you've built something meaningful, and it's clear you've had excellent support behind you. He looked up at me, startled but not hostile. Thanks, Ella. Thank you. I smiled at him, then turned to face the crowd. I'd like to offer a toast to legacy and to the many forms it takes. Dean Mallory's jaw tightened. I could see it even from halfway across the room. To those who rise because of guidance, I said, glancing at my brother, and those who rise in spite of its absence. There was a pause, a shift. Someone 3 tables over made a sound, half laugh, half gasp. Jonah's fiancée tilted her head slowly, eyes narrowing with interest. The gala photographer actually lowered his camera. I turned my gaze back to the podium. To family, I said, the ones we choose to uplift, and the ones we choose to forget. Then I sat down, calmly, smoothly, like nothing had happened. Dean Mallory cleared his throat once, then continued as if he hadn't just been cracked like a porcelain vase. But the damage was done. As dessert was served, I caught the eye of Emerson Cavill's father, James Cavill, the philanthropist. He didn't smile. He studied me with the cool curiosity of someone who just noticed a chess piece moving in a direction he hadn't anticipated. Good. Let the elite whisper. Let them wonder who the woman in black was, delivering veiled barbs like silk. I wasn't here for applause. I was here to remind the room that silence doesn't mean weakness, and that forgotten daughters don't stay forgotten forever. Jonah found me outside, near the edge of the courtyard where the gala lights faded into ivy-covered brick and quiet shadows. Eliza, he said. His voice wasn't angry, just thrown. I didn't turn right away. Just sipped from my glass and watched the lights blur across the surface. I didn't mean to make that awkward, I said softly. He let out a short breath. Yeah, well, that might be the least awkward thing that's happened tonight. I turned then. He looked older, up close and tired, like all the attention was wearing thin. Why didn't you tell me, he asked, that you were coming, that any of this? I shrugged. Didn't seem like anyone wanted to hear from me. He hesitated. You just disappeared. I looked him in the eye. They disowned me, Jonah. They cut me off. I didn't disappear. I was erased. His mouth opened then shut. He looked down, rubbing the back of his neck. I didn't know. I believe you, I said, and I meant it. He was 17 when I left. Still their favorite, still salvageable. They said you wanted out, that you didn't belong in the family. I figured, maybe that was true. My voice was steady but inside it rattled. Do you still believe that? He met my gaze. No. I could see the war behind his eyes. All those years being fed a version of me that served their narrative. Lazy, angry, ungrateful. And then I show up with poise, strategy, and power. It didn't fit. You were the smartest one, he said quietly. Back then I knew it. They just didn't like that you didn't play by their rules. I nodded. That's why they made sure I couldn't. Jonah shoved his hands into his pockets. What now? Before I could answer, footsteps clicked behind us. I turned and saw Theo Rain holding 2 glasses and wearing a look that said, "You'll want to hear this." "Eliza," he said, "I think it's time we talk shop." Jonah raised an eyebrow. "You two know each other?" "We do now," I said, accepting the second glass. Theo looked at Jonah. "You should probably know. Your father submitted grant applications in my name. Years ago, fabricated data to make his research look more groundbreaking." Jonah blinked. "What?" "I have the emails," Theo said. "The originals, unedited. He filed reports using my credentials, then told the board I withdrew from the study to discredit me when I found out." "That's not possible," Jonah said quietly. "It's very possible," I said, "and provable." He looked at me. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet," I said, "but I wanted you to hear it from me." Theo placed a small envelope in Jonah's hand. "This is a summary. The full archive is encrypted on a drive. She has it." Jonah stared down at it like it might burn him. "Why are you giving me this?" "Because you deserve the truth," Theo said. Jonah didn't speak for a while, just nodded slowly and slipped the envelope into his coat. Then he looked at me, really looked, and said, "Whatever you do next, I won't stop you." It wasn't an alliance. Not yet, but it was the first crack in the Mallory empire, and it was coming from the inside. They called it the Future Innovators Panel. A final segment to cap off the gala. Moderated discussion, soft questions, nothing too disruptive, just enough content to justify the fundraising ask that would come right after. They'd invited 3 speakers. One was a young AI developer out of MIT. Another, a biotech startup founder with angel funding from 2 of the event's platinum sponsors. And the third, me. I sat center stage beneath a soft wash of light, microphone in hand, facing a room full of polished donors and tenured faculty sipping Cabernet. Dean Mallory was front row, legs crossed, mouth tight. Jonah sat 2 rows back, arms folded, the envelope Theo gave him still tucked into his jacket pocket. The moderator smiled, turning to me. "Eliza Jordan, SolVault Analytics. You've been working with a number of private equity firms on data transparency and funding integrity. Tell us more about that." I nodded once, calm, measured. I could feel Theo's gaze from the far corner of the room. "At SolVault," I said, "we specialize in analytics designed to track financial behaviors in institutions, particularly where public funding intersects with private partnerships." The moderator nodded, encouraging. "Interesting. Any recent case studies?" "Actually, yes." I glanced across the crowd, letting the moment stretch. "Last quarter, we uncovered a pattern of falsified metrics in academic research tied to grant funding." Dean Mallory's spine straightened. "In this case," I continued, "a senior administrator submitted data to secure federal funds under someone else's credentials. When the whistleblower raised concerns, they were systematically pushed out of the department, their name removed from future publications." The room shifted. A few heads turned. Silence deepened. "This isn't an isolated incident," I said. "It's a structural issue. Prestige-driven research models that reward image over integrity create environments ripe for abuse." The moderator blinked. "And what happened?" "To the administrator, I mean. We presented our findings to our client," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "They opted not to renew funding agreements with the institution." Quietly, I didn't name names. I didn't have to. Across the room, Emerson Cavill's father leaned forward slightly. He connected the dots. Dean Mallory sat frozen, his jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle twitch. His hands didn't move. Not to object. Not to respond. Because he couldn't. Not without confirming it. I closed my remarks with a simple line. Accountability isn't just about punishment. It's about preserving trust before there's nothing left to protect. The applause was awkward at first. Scattered. Then stronger. People weren't sure how to react. That was perfect. Let confusion open the door for curiosity. When the panel wrapped and we stepped down from the stage, Jonah caught my arm near the refreshment table. His eyes searched mine, voice low. "Everyone knows it was him." Maybe I said, but I didn't say his name. He shook his head slowly. "You didn't have to." From across the room, my father stood like a stone figure, surrounded by colleagues who no longer made eye contact. My mother clutched her empty wine glass like it was something that could ground her. She didn't look over. They couldn't publicly react. That was the brilliance of it. No names, no lawsuits, just implications. I walked past them both without speaking. Jonah followed a few steps behind. I could feel the air shifting around me. Conversation stalled, as tracking me like a storm cloud that hadn't passed yet. Good. Let them whisper. Let them second-guess the stories they told each other for years. I didn't need to tear his reputation down. I just needed to leave a crack big enough for the truth to pour through. It didn't take long. By the time I reached the end of the reception line, people were whispering. Not politely either. The kind of whispering where hands cupped mouths and heads turned as I passed. A few people stopped pretending altogether. One trustee gave me a curt nod before muttering something to the woman beside him and walking away stiffly. I found a quiet spot near the lobby fountain to check my messages. 5 new emails. 3 were from board assistants I didn't know requesting meetings. 1 was from a Cavill tech executive I hadn't spoken to in over a year. Subject line, let's talk, grant frameworks. And then the last one, from James Cavill himself. Subject, dinner. Body, my daughter was impressed. So was I. Let's talk soon. I let the phone go dark and smiled to myself. That's when Emerson approached. Her heels clicked softly against the marble. She looked different now, not just polished, but alert. Curious. You're Jonah's sister, she said, tone even. The one they never talk about. I turned toward her. Guilty. She folded her arms loosely, studying me. That was a hell of a move up there. Subtlety's a learned skill. You didn't name names, but you painted a picture. I raised an eyebrow. Did you like the colors? She smiled just slightly. My father did. Before I could respond, another voice joined us. Deeper, harsher. Eliza. Dean Mallory. He stood just feet away, still composed, but something in his eyes had changed. Not fury, not even panic. Contempt maybe, but under that fear. We need to speak, he said. Of course, I replied, handing my glass to a nearby server. Lead the way. He took me around the side corridor near the coat room, where the gala lights faded and the marble turned to tile. A place built for hushed conversations and forgotten coats. He didn't waste time. What do you think you're doing? He asked. Sharing insights, I said. Isn't that what these events are for? His voice dropped. You're trying to destroy me. I didn't blink. No, I'm showing people who you are. You're doing the rest. He stepped closer. You don't understand the damage you've caused. I understand perfectly, I said. You built your entire career on controlling the narrative. I'm just turning on the lights. His mouth tightened. You came here to humiliate us. No, I said. I came here to remind you I exist. He stared at me, something unreadable passing across his face. Maybe he saw it, finally, how much I'd changed. How far from his definition of failure I'd climbed. Then his tone shifted, almost resigned. You always needed attention. I laughed once dry. No, I needed dignity. But you weren't offering that. He didn't respond, just turned, muttering something under his breath and walked back toward the lobby. Later that night, Jonah texted me. Can we talk? Alone, please. We met in the empty upstairs corridor near the faculty gallery. No one else around, just us and years of unspoken things. He looked at me, genuinely shaken. Tell me everything. I want to know what they did to you, what they didn't tell me. So I told him. About the night I left, the trust fund, the exile, the silence that followed. His face shifted as he listened. Confusion turned to disbelief. Disbelief gave way to something heavier, grief, maybe, or guilt. God, he whispered. They lied to me. I put a hand on his arm. They lied to both of us. And for the first time in a decade, I saw it in his eyes. He wasn't just hearing me. He was finally seeing me. The phone call came the next morning. Early. Too early for anything good. Jonah's voice was thin. It's Dad. He had a stroke. I closed my eyes and breathed in through my nose. Is he? Minor. They caught it fast. He's stable. But they're keeping him overnight at Brigham. There was a long silence. I thought you should know, Jonah said. He's asking for you. I didn't answer right away. I just looked out the hotel window at the city skyline. Same towers. Same old brick. I'd once dreamed of escaping it. Now it felt like I had it in my palm and I didn't know what I wanted to do with it. I'll come, I said finally. But not for him. The hospital room was all sterile white and beeping monitors. My father looked smaller in that bed. His face slackened a little, his skin pale and stretched thin across sharp bones. He saw me walk in and didn't try to sit up, just blinked slowly. Eliza, he rasped. You came. I stayed standing. I did. He studied me. Like I was a puzzle he thought he'd already solved but now couldn't remember the edges. You've changed, he said. Good, I replied. A soft cough rattled through his chest. That speech, the data references, that was about me. I didn't deny it. I didn't need to. He looked away, eyes drifting toward the monitor beside him. I was wrong. About you. I tilted my head. 10 years late. But thanks. You were angry, he muttered. You wanted to shame me. I crossed my arms. No. I wanted the truth to exist somewhere other than in my chest. He flinched slightly at that. Then, after a long pause, he said, You've built something remarkable. I stayed still, waiting. He turned back to me and this time his voice cracked slightly. You eclipsed me. You know that. I blinked. That was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever get from him. Not sorrow. Not regret. Just the acknowledgement that I'd outgrown the shadow he tried to trap me in. I leaned in a little. I didn't build it to win. I built it because I had to survive. His eyelids fluttered, heavy with whatever medication they dosed him with. What now? He asked. I stared at him for a long time. That's up to me. A day later, I met James Cavill in a private room on the 23rd floor of a Cambridge tech tower. It was minimalist, cool, the kind of space where big offers happen without ever touching paper. He poured us both espresso. You handled that gala with more poise than I've seen in 10 years of boardrooms, he said. Thank you. My daughter's impressed. And so am I. He handed me a proposal packet. Simple, 6 pages, but the title said it all: Executive Director, Education Impact Initiative, a joint venture between Tech and a network of equity-driven education foundations. The job would put me at the helm of a program set to overhaul how grants were allocated, favoring inclusion, transparency, and integrity. It also came with influence and funding, and the quiet knowledge that this position would eclipse Dean Mallory's in every way. Say yes, he said, and you become the face of the new guard. I ran my finger along the edge of the folder. Is this a hammer? I asked. Or a blueprint? Cavill smiled. That's your choice. And it was. I could use this to destroy him completely. Strip what was left of his name from every hall, every endowment, every honorary title. Or I could take this chance and build something that mattered, something not rooted in his empire, but independent of it. Mine. I looked down at the offer. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the heat of old shame or the pull of old pain. I just saw a door. And this time I had the key. 3 weeks later, I stood on a makeshift stage in a converted downtown warehouse. Exposed brick walls, warm lighting, and no trace of ivory towers or oak-paneled institutions. This wasn't Mallory University. It was the launch event for the new initiative, the Horizon Grant Foundation. The name had been my choice, a nod to possibility, what lies ahead, not behind. The crowd was smaller than the gala, but warmer. Former students, young entrepreneurs, educators from community colleges and underfunded programs. Real people with real stories. The ones who knew what it meant to fight for a second chance. I wore a navy dress, understated but strong. No jewelry, no script, just a simple microphone and the speech I'd written on the flight home, scrawled into the margins of a boarding pass. Jonah stood off to the side, adjusting his cufflinks and looking more comfortable than I'd ever seen him outside a lab. We'd spent a long afternoon over coffee, talking through what the foundation would be. He didn't hesitate when I asked him to co-chair it. This is your legacy too, I told him. But this time, we build it right. Now I stepped up to the mic. The room quieted. When I was 19, I failed. Not just in school, but in the eyes of the people who thought they had the right to define my worth. I wasn't invited back. I wasn't encouraged to try again. I was written off. A few people in the room nodded. Some knew. Some had lived it too. But failure, I said, is not the opposite of excellence. It's part of it. And sometimes the people who fall hardest are the ones who learn how to rise differently. I let the silence sit for a moment. This foundation exists for them. For the students who didn't fit the mold, for the ones who work 2 jobs and still show up to night classes, for the ones who never had a trust fund or a connection, but have something just as valuable: resilience. Scattered applause rose. I saw Emerson Cavill clapping near the back, her father beside her, arms crossed, nodding once, satisfied. I scanned the room again and saw them, my parents, standing near the exit, distant, stiff, watching. They weren't here as guests, just observers. No seats, no influence, no control. My mother looked almost brittle in her tailored coat. My father held a program in his lap, creased down the middle from being folded and unfolded too many times. Neither of them smiled, but they didn't leave. Good. Let them see it. Let them witness what they tried to bury grow roots and bloom. As the applause grew, I stepped back from the mic. Jonah met me near the edge of the stage and offered a fist bump, smiling like a kid again. We did it, he said. No, I said. We're just getting started. A moment later, Theo appeared beside me, holding 2 glasses of cider. He handed me one. You were perfect. I took it, sipping slowly. That's new. He smiled. So are you. I looked around. At Jonah laughing with a group of scholarship students. At the emails piling up on the event tablet from donors who wanted in. At the humble but powerful thing we built together. Then I looked back at my parents, still standing quietly by the exit. They didn't move toward me. I didn't move toward them. And that was okay. Because I hadn't come here to reclaim a place in their version of family. I came to define my own. And these people, this mission, this future was mine.